Now, before I part with Louvet, I must mention another reference of his to Irish history. You may, of course, have heard of Malachi, who wore the collar of gold which he won from the proud invader. Alas, the true history of the collar of Malachi is very different from Tommy Moore's version. An Irish bishop, praying after his office, saw a pale spectre with a collar of flames about his neck. This was Malachi. He had misused his kingly power, and, to bend his confessor to culpable indulgence, had bribed him with a ring of gold. For punishment, he had now to wear this ring of flame about his neck. And his confessor could give him no help, for he was himself condemned to wear a heavier and more painful one. You will be glad to hear that after some months of prayers, the bishop was able to obtain relief for the two sufferers. These extracts, ladies and gentlemen, long as they have been, give you a very faint idea of the mass of information about purgatory made known by revelations which respected priests, writing with all the air of grave historians, relate for their edification of their flocks in books bought up by thousands. A companion volume to that on purgatory might easily be made on the revelations about the Virgin Mary, in which the modest doctrine of the Council of Trent, that it is useful to invoke her intercession, is rapidly being improved into the doctrine that no one who does invoke it can be lost, and no one who does not can be saved. One would think we had a right to know from the infallible authority whether these revelations and the doctrine which they contain ought to be received or not. But he remained silent. Those who, like Father Faber and Louvet, receive these revelations as Scripture, obtain commendation for their piety, but one who treats these stories with complete disregard is visited with no official censure, whatever suspicious private individuals may entertain of the coldness of his faith. But all the time, on the strength of stories which the supreme authority will neither affirm nor deny, beliefs are being silently built up in the church, on which he is likely hereafter to be asked to put his seal. In the Roman Church, the idea seems to be now of handing down the faith once for all delivered to the saints. That idea is now abandoned. It is a vast manufactory of beliefs to which addition is being yearly made. And as when you go into some great manufactory, you may be shown the article in all its stages, the finished product with the manufacturer's stamp upon it, the article near completion and wanting hardly anything but the stamp, the half-finished work, the raw materials out of which the article is made. So it is in the Roman Church. There you have the finished article. Dogmas pronounced by Pope and Council to be de fide, which none may deny on pain of damnation. But there are, besides, articles fere de fide, not yet actually proclaimed by infallible authority to be necessary to salvation, to be believed in, yet they are wanting nothing else but official promulgation. So generally received and acknowledged by such high authorities that to contradict them would be pronounced temerarious, and their formal adoption by the Church seems to be only a question of time. Somewhat below these in authority, but still very high, are other doctrines supported by such grave doctors that it would be a breach of modesty to contradict them. Below these, again, other things owned to be still matters of private opinion, but which seem to be working their way to general belief, and which, if they should in time gain universal acceptance, will deserve to be proclaimed to be the faith of the Church. It is needless to say what help is given towards such general recognition of a doctrine if a canonized saint, whom it is impossible to suspect of deceit, and disrespectful to suspect of delusion, declares that he has been taught the truth of the doctrine by revelation from heaven. It is inevitable that a doctrinal statement so commended, if no disapprobation of it is expressed by higher authority, comes to the Church with such a weight of recommendation that it can hardly help becoming the prevalent opinion. And then, in process of time, how can the head of the church refuse to declare that to be the faith of the church, which the great majority of its members, including perhaps himself, believe to be true? If the supreme authority puts off its interference to the last stage, that interference comes altogether too late. It is useless to teach the church when the church has already made up its mind. And surely, if Christ has left a vicar upon earth, what more appropriate function can he have than that of informing the world how to distinguish the voice of Christ from that of false pretenders who venture to speak in his name? Anyone who claims to have received a revelation from God must be either as much deluded as Joanna Southcote or as much inspired as St. Paul. If there be any in the later church to whom God has made real revelations, we are bound to receive these truths so disclosed with the same reverence and assent which we give to what was taught by the apostles. It is important for us to know whether the book of God's revelation has closed with the Apocalypse of St. John, or whether we are to add to the inspired volume the revelations of St. Francesca, St. Gertrude, and St. Catherine. If these last are real revelations, they who reject them are doing their souls the same injury as if they rejected the books of Scripture. We look to the infallible authority for guidance, but he owns himself to be as helpless as ourselves to distinguish the true prophet from the false pretender, and gives us leave to believe or reject as we like. Nay, he gives a kind of ambiguous approval. He honors the recipients of the alleged revelations, canonizes them as saints, encourages his children to ask their intercession, now that they are dead. But if questioned, did these persons, when they were alive, deceive the people by teaching them their own fancies, as if they were divine revelations? He declares this a question outside his commission to answer. It is clear that he does not really believe in his own infallibility.